Unless you've been sleeping under a rock like Patrick, you've seen these 3 SpongeBob movies. Now, whether or not you watched them, you knew they exist. This show's been on for many years, since 1999, before I was born. This show is great, but more importantly, the movies. But not everyone felt the same way as I did about the movies. So, I figured shit, why not? Let's discuss the good, the bad, the ugly SpongeBob Trilogy. So, buckle up, you're in for a treat. Unless you hate the SpongeBob franchise, then sit back and take your headache. The first movie in the trilogy, and most notable, is the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. Premiering November 19, 2004, the staple of the franchise was born. The cast in this movie shined the brightest in this film. It was peak voice acting at its finest. The film pulled a 7.2 on IMDb and a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's safe to say the movie was a success. Don't just take my word for it, the reviews speak for itself. I know you probably watched this movie, but to go through with the trilogy, we're gonna start with this movie. So we're gonna watch it again. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. The plot is SpongeBob SquarePants and his starfish friend Patrick embark on a quest to clear the name of Mr. Krabs, the owner of the Krusty Krab restaurant, who has been framed for stealing the crown of ocean deity King Neptune. Leaving the familiar confines of Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob and Patrick venture out towards Shell City, where they hope to find Neptune's crown, but numerous obstacles stand, or shall I say, float. We open with a standoff with a fish named Phil. He doesn't have cheese on his Krabby Patty, and yet SpongeBob saves the day. But it was a dream sequence. He gets up and he gets ready for the day. Mr. Krabs is opening a second Krusty Krab called the Krusty Krab 2. How original. SpongeBob thinks he's going to be the manager of the Krusty Krab 2. Plankton finds out he has a Plan Z and that it apparently won't fail. We're at the ceremony when Mr. Krabs announces the manager, and it turns out to be Squidward. SpongeBob mishears it and we get this funny scene.
Yeah! Yeah! Oh, better luck next time, buddy! Woo!
Plankton ends up stealing the crown from King Neptune. SpongeBob and Patrick are at Goofy Goobers. SpongeBob is sad when him and Patrick decides to chow down on Sundays nonstop. And obviously the Sundays must have some type of alcohol in them because SpongeBob and Patrick are pretty much drunk. King Neptune is at the Krusty Krab and he believes that Mr. Krabs stole the royal crown and sold it to a pawn store and pretty much sold it to a guy in Shell City. King Neptune is about to vaporize Mr. Krabs until SpongeBob shows up. He calls him a jerk and goes off on him until Neptune sets Krabs on fire. SpongeBob tells him that he will go to Shell City and retrieve King Neptune's crown. Neptune laughs at him but says if he's willing to do it, he'll give him 10 days. Patrick somehow negotiates him down to 6 days until Mr. Krabs chokes him out. Neptune will give SpongeBob and Patrick 6 days to retrieve the crown, or Mr. Krabs will be vaporized. Until he gets back, Mr. Krabs will be frozen. Patrick has a huge crush on Mindy, by the way. SpongeBob and Patrick hop in the infamous paddy wagon and they head to Shell City. In the meantime, Plankton goes to the Krusty Krab and steals the Krabby Patty formula. SpongeBob and Patrick run into these 2 clowns at the gas station. They get carjacked. Plankton is now selling Krabby Patties and is becoming wildly successful. Plankton is also giving everyone bucket helmets, and that's very important to know for later on in the story. Plankton hires a mercenary named Dennis to take out SpongeBob and Patrick. SpongeBob and Patrick spot the paddy wagon at the Thug Tug. That was hard to say. Patrick starts a distraction by asking people where the bathroom is because he's scared. SpongeBob follows him into the bathroom and he goes to wash his hands, and now he's playing with the soap dish and it's causing bubbles. I'm assuming that's the owner of the Thug Tug. Anyway, he lines up everyone in the building trying to figure out who's the baby pretty much. SpongeBob and Patrick are trying really hard not to sing the Goofy Goober song. A fight breaks out and Patrick was able to steal the spatula, so now they can continue on their journey. Squidward comes outside and notices everyone wearing chum bucket helmets. He goes to confront Plankton. Squidward threatens to go to King Neptune and tell him what happened. Plankton activated the mind control helmets that everyone is wearing. Now he has full control of all the people in Bikini Bottom as his slaves. SpongeBob and Patrick stop at this ice cream parlor, and I guess the skulls around them isn't an indicator that something dangerous is happening. The ice cream is stuck to this old lady's hand, which turns out to be the tongue of a red fish monster. The fish monster gets eaten by another fish monster, and we get this iconic meme. SpongeBob and Patrick wants to give up and turn back home when Mindy shows up, and she shows them everything that's happening in Bikini Bottom with Plankton. Mindy puts seaweed on their faces as mustaches and convinces them that they're met. and they make it past all the monsters. Dennis ends up meeting up with them, and he tells them all of Plankton's plans. And a deep sea diver steps on Dennis, and he captures SpongeBob and Patrick. He brings them to a shop, and he puts them with the rest of his stuff with the light pointed directly on SpongeBob and Patrick, and they cry as they dry out. It is honestly really sad. I remember watching it for the first time when I was a kid, man. It definitely broke me though. The tear ends up somehow rolling down all this writing and everything, and it shortens out the electrical fuse, which causes the smoke alarms to go off along with the sprinklers. All of the characters are now brought back to life, and they all attack the deep sea diver. SpongeBob and Patrick grab King Neptune's crown, and they head out. David Hasselhoff ends up showing up and taking SpongeBob and Patrick back towards Bikini Bottom. Dennis shows up and climbs on top of David Hasselhoff. SpongeBob blows bubbles directly in Dennis's eyes so he can't see. Dennis gets hit by another boat and he is presumed dead. I mean, obviously that probably killed him. SpongeBob and Patrick ends up back at the Krusty Krab and he tells everyone what just happened. Plankton put a helmet over King Neptune's head and activated it. SpongeBob has this whole monologue about being an adult and being manly, and he busted out in a Goofy Goober song. And as he breaks out in song, he transforms everyone back to normal. The crown is returned back to King Neptune, who's happy, and he unfreezes Mr. Krabs, and he apologizes to him. Like, that one I didn't expect. And Squidward gives up the manager position for SpongeBob. Yeah, this movie was amazing, especially if you grew up on it, but giving it another watch now that you're older, it definitely lets you appreciate what the film was and is about. I have nothing negative to say about this film. There will be no slander on this movie. We're gonna save that for the next two. The second movie in this trilogy is Sponge Out of Water. Premiering February 6, 2015, the film managed to pull a 6.0 from IMDb and a whopping 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. The reviews were in and people were enjoying it. So without further ado, let's give it a watch. The plot is, a pirate named Burger Beer, Antonio Banderas by the way, steals the Krabby Patty formula, and it's up to SpongeBob and Plankton to team up to find the Krabby Patty formula, even if it means leaving Bikini Bottom. This pirate made it to an island, and he goes through booby traps and fights a skeleton to get this book, which is like the tale of SpongeBob. He starts reading it. We're now in Bikini Bottom, and Plankton, of course, is trying to get the secret Krabby Patty formula, as usual, and he goes to war with SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mr. Krabs. Plankton's plans are foiled again, and he only has a coin to his name. He gives it to Krabs, who can't turn down money. Plankton is secretly hiding in the coin, though, in another attempt to steal the Krabby Patty formula. Plankton and SpongeBob are fighting over the Krabby Patty formula when it just disappears. Mr. Krabs is torturing Plankton over the Krabby Patty formula, which he didn't take. Krabs is getting everyone in Bikini Bottom angry at Plankton. SpongeBob is convinced Plankton is innocent. SpongeBob blows a bubble and takes him and Plankton away, and now they're in like this apocalypse. All of Bikini Bottom is in chaos. We cut back to the pirate, who then writes that the story ends. All of the birds are now upset because they're like, the story can't end like that, and they tear the page out and it lands on top of Sandy's tree dome. SpongeBob tells Plankton that they have to find the formula and restore Bikini Bottom. He tells Plankton that they need to assemble a team. Patrick, of course, sells them out because he wants a Krabby Patty. Sandy goes insane trying to figure out if this thing ends, like if the world ends due to them not having the secret Krabby Patty formula. SpongeBob and Plankton leaves Bikini Bottom, and then SpongeBob falls asleep and Plankton enters SpongeBob's brain, trying to find the secret Patty formula. SpongeBob wakes up and he's upset that Plankton thought he was lying about knowing the formula. Plankton comes up with this idea to build a time machine, but realizing that they need a computer, they go back to the Chum Bucket to retrieve Karen, who's been imprisoned inside of the Chum Bucket. They rescue her and they go into this taco shack and build a time machine together. They go 4 days into the future and realize that everything ceases to exist. Well, almost everything except for Patrick. He stayed around. They go back inside the time machine and they arrive in a time period with an ancient dolphin named Bubbles, whose duty is to protect the world from meteors and dangers from space. He asks SpongeBob and Plankton to keep an eye on things while he goes to the bathroom, and of course Plankton and SpongeBob allow Jupiter and Saturn to crash into each other. They go back in the time machine. They manage to go exactly where they were when the Krabby Patty formula came up missing. They get the Krabby Patty formula from that time period and they enter the time machine again. We cut back to the pirate, who crashes onto a beach to announce that he's now opening up a food truck. Sandy comes into the Krusty Krab and announces that they angered the sandwich gods and that they need a sacrifice. SpongeBob and Plankton shows up in the time machine with the secret Krabby formula, only for them to reveal that SpongeBob grabbed the wrong bottle. So now they want to sacrifice SpongeBob and chaos breaks out again. SpongeBob and Plankton have a huge heated argument in front of everyone that causes them to stop and pay attention, and SpongeBob is so mad he mixes garbage with recycling. Like, bro, how could you? SpongeBob agrees to the sacrifice if it means bringing restoration back to the Krusty Krab and Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob starts smelling Krabby Patties all of a sudden, and so everyone follows SpongeBob as he goes to try to find the Krabby Patties. They reach the top of the surface and realize they can't continue, otherwise they won't be able to breathe air. Bubbles show up and help them go to dry land. Oh, and Plankton sneaks in SpongeBob's sock. Of course, they don't know how to act on dry land so far. No shocker there. They find the pirate's food truck. They confront the pirate and he tells them how he stole the Krabby Patty formula, but yeah, he's confused because they're not supposed to be there, and it's not in the book. We find out that the pirate has a magical book. Basically, whatever he writes in it happens in their story. He writes them away to Pelican Island. Sandy takes out the page from the book that fell in her tree dome, and SpongeBob writes on it and changes the story. However, when they left, Plankton hopped out of SpongeBob's sock, and now he's writing on the page. SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, and Squidward all have superpowers, and they go back to the pirate's food truck. SpongeBob blows a bubble and sends the magical book flying in the air. Mr. Krabs shoots his claw at the pirate, and they all celebrate, and the pirate sneaks away. They catch up to him, and now they're fighting. But yet, everything that the gang is throwing at the pirate, he has a counter.
Yeah, SpongeBob, you really blew it.
No, Patrick, we blew it as a team.
Nope, this one's on you.
The pirate is about to get away when he spots Plankton, who is super jacked. With Plankton's assistance, SpongeBob blows a lot of bubbles and catches the pirate. He hands over the secret Krabby Patty formula to Plankton, and Plankton boots him away. Plankton hands over the secret patty formula to Mr. Krabs, and SpongeBob writes them all home. Oh, and we end with a wonderful title sequence. If you like Marvel, no. If you like DC, then this scene was everything for you. It kinda didn't make sense that a discarded page still has magical powers if the book itself is magical, but hey. And how the hell is the book magical? I feel like we don't know much about the context with that. Who wrote the damn book? Matter of fact, who wrote the damn script? That's the real question. Oh, and I just want to add, I find it kind of dumb how Plankton handed the formula over to Krabs willingly due to him being part of a TM. Oh, and it's a running gag that he can't say team. No, seriously. That was like most of the movie. Plankton's just going to try to get the formula in the next film, which he did try to actually get the formula in the next film. And we're about to cover that next. This whole movie was a fucking debacle. But if you enjoyed it, hey. The latest movie in the trilogy, but certainly not the last, Sponge on the Run. Premiering August 7th, 2020 with a star-studded cast, and I mean, this film was beefed up. Hans Zimmer and Steve Mazzaro did the music. I mean, they did their big one with this one, but it's still my first time watching it. The film managed to pull a 5.9 from IMDb and a 67% on Rotten Tomatoes. Even with the mixed reactions, it's still a part of the trilogy, so we're gonna give it a watch. The plot is, when SpongeBob SquarePants' beloved pet snail Gary goes missing, a path of clues leads SpongeBob and his best friend Patrick to the powerful King Poseidon, who has Gary held captive in the lost city of Atlantic City. On their mission to save Gary, SpongeBob and the Bikini Bottom gang team up for a heroic and hilarious journey, where they discover nothing is more powerful and stronger than the power of friendship. How adorable.
Good morning, Patrick!
Good morning, SpongeBob!
Watch out, two knuckleheads! Keep it down out there!
Oh, don't worry, Care Bear. I'll be back before you can say, why did he cruelly abandon me like that?
Oh.
Another day, another migraine.
I felt that. SpongeBob is being his annoying self. Plankton is on plan 3087 to take the secret formula from Mr. Krabs. What did I tell you in the last movie? I told you he was going to do this again, right? Okay. Karen tells him that it is not Krabs that foils his plans, it's SpongeBob. King Poseidon is full of himself in his skincare routine, and he spots a wrinkle, so he asks his chancellor to bring him a snail. Apparently, he uses snail goop for his skincare routine. He finds out they're all out of snails, and the snail population is decreasing. So he sends his chancellor into Bikini Bottom to place a royal decree for a snail. Plankton uses this as an excuse to get rid of SpongeBob, so he kidnaps Gary and takes him to the lost city of Atlantis. Patrick and SpongeBob set out to find him, but don't know how to get to the lost city of Atlantis, so Plankton shows up with a boat and a robot for him to drive SpongeBob and Patrick to the lost city of Atlantis. The robot takes them to this weird, like, Wild Wild West town and leaves them there when they encounter Keanu Reeves, well, Sage, who convinces them that they're in a dream and that he'll help them if they complete a challenge, which is free the souls of the zombies from El Diablo. Snoop Dogg shows up and he breaks out in song. El Diablo shows up and SpongeBob and Patrick open the curtain and doesn't realize that they're burning El Diablo, and ultimately melts him, and all the zombie souls are now free. The robot pulls back up with Sage and takes him to the lost city. Sage shows them the window of Meanwhile, and we see that Gary is in trouble. They get to the Lost City and Sage says to them that they have to stay focused, and SpongeBob and Patrick obviously loses focus and they have a blast gambling and partying. Sage shows up to tell them that they need to focus on Gary and takes them to Poseidon's castle pretty much. They get mistaken for a performing act when SpongeBob spots Gary. He tries to take Gary when Poseidon sees him and Patrick and he throws him in jail. Waiting for their execution, Sandy goes looking for SpongeBob and checks everywhere. She ends up at the Krusty Krab and they notice on the TV that Poseidon arrested SpongeBob and Patrick and soon plans to execute them. They all hop in a paddy wagon that's now souped up on their mission to go rescue SpongeBob and Patrick. Oh, and Plankton decides to go with them because he feels bad. I mean, you only caused all of it. SpongeBob is feeling sorry for himself when he remembers that the challenge coin that Sage gave them earlier to unlock their courage. SpongeBob and Patrick get into an argument because Patrick gambled away the coin, but only after SpongeBob told him to let it ride apparently. That's gambling, ladies and gentlemen. Patrick gets upset and he walks out of the cell and into his own cell, which kinda defeats the whole purpose, but hey. Squidward, Plankton, Mr. Krabs, and Sandy arrive in the Lost City, and Sandy argues on behalf of SpongeBob and Patrick, and they all tell their stories of how SpongeBob affected their lives for the better. Sandy tells how SpongeBob encouraged her to be a scientist, Patrick told how SpongeBob became his first friend, Squidward told how SpongeBob gave up his first place trophy from the talent show to him, and Mr. Krabs told how SpongeBob encouraged him to open a restaurant. It was touching. And if that wasn't weird enough, they all break out in a dance number. It was all part of Sandy's plan though, for them to take Gary and replace him with a cardboard cutout and take SpongeBob and Patrick, and now they're running away from Poseidon and his guards. Yeah, that creeped me out. They get stopped by Poseidon and his guards, and Poseidon tells them that I want to drop all the charges and let SpongeBob go if he just hands over Gary. SpongeBob has an immediate thought of Sage, who tells him that courage is within. He stands up to Poseidon and tells him that his friends stuck up for him and risked their lives to help him, and Poseidon realizes that he has no friends, and he breaks down, and SpongeBob agrees to be his friend. He goes through a sense of reality and finally becomes himself. Not gonna lie, he looked kinda gross. Poseidon frees all the snails, SpongeBob takes them all to Bikini Bottom, and everybody in Bikini Bottom adopts a snail. The end. Oh, and it was also a memory of Steven Hillenburg, marine biologist and creator of SpongeBob. It's without a doubt that Patrick carried that entire film. He was hilarious. This film needed Patrick, no, honestly, because the story for the most part was all over the place. For 20 minutes, SpongeBob wasn't even worried about Gary. I mean, we got Keanu Reeves though. Oh, and I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't bring up the biopics of how they all met SpongeBob, which is historically incorrect. Most of how they met him was explained in season 1. But you know what? At least this animation wasn't Megamind 2, because that shit was awful. What the hell was that? And where's King Neptune? See, I'm gonna ask the real questions. I don't care. This film struggled with pacing really bad, and it shows. Like I said, thank you, Patrick. Like I mentioned earlier, it certainly wasn't the last movie. I'm sure you guys all know that premiering December 2025, the SpongeBob movie Search for SquarePants will be on the big screen. And the only details we know is that SpongeBob will be facing off with the Flying Dutchman. Oh, and also the Sandy Cheeks film has been delayed, but it's happening. It's happening. You can't get rid of SpongeBob, and honestly, why would you? I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn the post notification bell so you won't miss another video, and I leave you all with Patrick being Patrick.
Hey, hop on! They're just giving these things away at the grocery store.